Hey, what's up guys? My name is Kenway and we are here to talk today about how to use OBS for absolute beginners in 2021. Hey everybody and welcome into the channel. My name is Kenway, if you didn't already know. I am a Twitch streamer, apparently now a YouTuber as well, to some extent. I'm a graphic designer by trade and I've been in and out of bands for, oh god, I'm old. We'll just say over a decade. That's, I feel like the easiest way I can get out of that one without feeling like a real old man today. But today I'm starting a new journey because over the last 10 years, I've found myself having to teach myself how to do a lot of things for all of the creative projects that I've ever tried to do because I just simply couldn't afford to pay someone else to do them better. And while I very much believe that oftentimes paying somebody with the experience to do a great job for you is the best option, if you can't afford it, then that's just not an option that's available to you. So sometimes it's better to learn to do those things by yourself. So one of the things I wanted to do in 2021 was start making some videos that are kind of a beginner solo content creator toolbox that you can use to level up your own game. I can't believe I just said that. And take what you're doing this year to the next level. So today, we're starting with the very bare bone basics. I am a content creator on the internet, or I wanna be, and I wanna do live streams. Whether that's on Twitch, on YouTube, what have you, the most popular software that you're gonna run into people using to do that very thing is OBS. And it can be a wild experience to jump into with no knowledge for the first time. So if you know absolutely nothing about OBS and you are here today, you're in the right place. So when you first open up OBS, it's just really inspiring. There's lots of beautiful colors, lots of helpful informational tips that pop up on the screen. No, there isn't. There isn't any of those things. OBS is a wonderful product made by an incredibly small development team, which I think is primarily just one guy. I could be wrong there. Let me know if I f that up. I really shouldn't swear on this channel. So this is at least roughly what OBS should look like the first time that you open it up. And mind you, I am using a 4K monitor, so I'm going to have a little bit more screen real estate than you might. So some of the boxes might be differently proportioned or in slightly different places, but it should more or less look like this. And the nice thing about OBS is that you can really customize how you want it to look. All of these boxes and windows that are in here are completely customizable. So like if you want this audio mixer to be somewhere else, you can just pick it up and you can swap its positions with the sources, or you can throw it up here on the side and put it next to your preview window. You can also, even if there's a window that you don't use very much, so let's say like this scene transitions window, right? Let's bring this over here by itself for a minute. If you want easy access to this, but you don't necessarily use it all the time, you can even take this audio mixer and you can drop it onto the same spot. You can make these neat little folder tabs to bounce between the two and save yourself some screen real estate. For the purposes of this video, we're gonna try to keep everything really straightforward, but if you ever do watch other OBS videos and things look a little bit different, this is part of why. So in order to use OBS, you have to first understand some basic terminology for the software and how it works. So let's go to the very bare bones. Sources. What is a source? A source is anything that you want to be portrayed on your stream in some way or another. Anything that your audience sees or hears while you're streaming comes down to sources inside of the software. So if we come down to our sources window here in OBS, this guy right here, you'll notice in the bottom left, you've got a plus and a minus button. This is one of the ways that you can add or remove sources into the sources panel. Let's hit the add button. When you hit the add button, you're probably going to see a few less options than what I have, and that's because I have some extra plugins installed. You can largely ignore this for right now. We're only going to be talking about a few of these today. So the base of everyone's stream, well, most people's stream, is the person running it. It's you. And people want to see you. And there's a whole debate that we can go on about whether or not you should use a webcam when you stream, but I pretty firmly fall on the side of yes, people are going to come to their stream to meet you and build a relationship with you. And if they can't see you, it's not that that can't happen, but it does get harder to some extent. So let's start out by adding a webcam source. We're going to hit this plus button and we're going to come up to right at the bottom of the list, video capture device. And that is really the bare bones of the term. It's a device that is capturing video and bringing it into your stream computer. So we'll click that and we'll get this create select source window and a little text box. And we use this text box to name the source whatever we want. Now you can just leave it as video capture device if you want to, but I always recommend naming it something that you'll remember. So when you look at your source list, you know exactly what that thing is. So I'm going to call this Sony A7 III because that's what I'm using to talk to you right now. We'll hit OK, and we're going to have this properties box show up, and we're going to see nothing because the correct device isn't selected yet. So if you look at this top drop-down box right here that says device, if we click on that, we get a whole list, and these are all of the video capture devices that you have plugged into your computer. You may only have one or two things here. For instance, I know if you open it up on a MacBook, you'll probably have your FaceTime camera will show up, and then whatever webcam you have plugged into it, like a Logitech C920 maybe, that's what's going to show up in here. I'm actually using a capture card to bring in a camera, so I'm going to click this one right here that says Game Capture HD60 Pro #1. And when I pick this, now I'm going to guess probably you're going to see several of me because I don't know how I'm going to edit this video yet, but I'm guessing wherever my face was before, it's still there, but now it's also, let's just keep going. There's a couple options that you'll see inside of this window once you're here. Now, if you pick out a Logitech webcam specifically, in my experience, those tend to actually load at the wrong resolution. So if you look at mine right now, it's definitely a 1920 by 1080p screen, but you might get like a box if you use the Logitech, and you can fix that if you come down here to the resolution FPS type box. Right now it's set to device default. You can set that to custom, and if you come down here then to the resolution box, you can type in 1920 by 1080, and that will fix your webcam ratio. So for me, everything looks good here, so I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. And now, instead of a giant black box, we have my face on the screen. Just what everybody wanted. More me. So this is okay, but it doesn't give me any room to do anything else. So what we're going to do is resize this to be more of, man, this really is my first day on YouTube. I left a hoodie on my, this doesn't really give me a whole lot of screen real estate to do anything else with. And this would be fine for like, if we're going to do a just chatting screen and I'm just going to sit here and talk to chat, we could absolutely use this and get away with it. Totally fine. I think it looks great. But maybe you want to play a video game right now. Where am I supposed to put that? So if you look around the outside of our webcam box, we have this big red box with squares all around it. And you can grab those squares and use those to resize the box to any size that you want to. And once you do that, now you can click on the source and you can drag it to be anywhere on the screen that you want to. I try not to give you too much motion sickness while I'm doing this. So I'm just, for now, we're going to take this and we're going to put me down in the bottom right-hand corner because this is my favorite place to be. We're going to make me just a little bit smaller, and there. I like that. That seems all right to me. And then I want to play a game, and there's a few different ways that we can do this, and I'm going to try to talk quickly about all of them. The first thing we're going to do is, just like before, we're going to come down to our sources window, and we're going to hit this add button. And now this is where things can get a little tricky. Depending on how you're going to play the game and what your setup looks like, there's a myriad of different ways that we can do this. So let's talk about what I think is probably going to be the most common one first, which is people who are streaming their games off of the same PC that they're playing them on. And there's a couple different ways that we can tackle that. The first way is we're going to come up here and we're going to select this option that says Game Capture. I'm just going to leave this as Game Capture because that tells me everything I need to know about it for right now. And we're going to hit OK. And by default, the properties for Game Capture set it to the mode to look for any full screen application. But we're not using a full screen application right now. There's a whole bunch of reasons why, but I tend to guide people away from using this option depending on what your setups are, because full screen, just the way that it's programmed and the way that it works isn't super streamer friendly. If the game has an option for windowed borderless mode, that's always the way that you want to go. That way no application is taking full control over one of your monitors, but you still don't have to look at the border in the top of the window. So for this one, we're going to come down here, we're going to click the mode button, and we're going to tell it to capture a specific window. And then you'll see we get this extra window drop down. We'll click that, and we're going to pick one of my favorite games, Stardew Valley. We'll click this, and we should get Stardew Valley. And this is great. And sometimes it isn't. Sometimes this still won't work. Like I know, for instance, whenever I try to run Destiny 2, I can't use the game capture device to capture that particular software. So for now, I'm going to hit OK because it did work. But then you'll see over here in the sources window, we have two sources, the game capture and the Sony A7 III. And over here to the right, we have two symbols. We have a little eye icon and a little lock icon. The eye icon does exactly what I would assume that you think it's going to do. it's going to allow you to either see or not see that particular source. So if you toggle that off and on, it'll turn off that particular source so that you can or cannot see it. So for now, I'm going to leave that off just so we can talk about some of the other ways that you can also capture video games using the same computer that you're streaming with. So for this next one, we'll go down to the plus button one more time, and we're going to choose window capture this time. And right away, it just grabs Stardew Valley. So the window capture does essentially the same thing as the game capture does from a user standpoint, but it is a little bit more tasking on your computer. So if your computer isn't quite powerful enough to do like a full resolution stream, sometimes doing something like a window capture or a display capture can be a little bit too much for you. But if it works, this is largely going to be a surefire way to capture any application. You can also use window capture if you want to do art streams and you want to stream something like Photoshop or Clip Studio or Adobe Illustrator. You can use window capture to stream those softwares as well without having to worry too much about it not working. So we're not going to use this for today, but just know that it's here. The same way, if you click on the window drop down, you can look at all the other things that you have open right now. You can capture those windows instead. And then the other way that we can do this is if we absolutely have to, you can hit the add button and we can hit display capture. And once we get to the properties screen, you'll see this mesh show up. And then this actually allows you to capture the whole screen for whatever it is that you're doing. And so if all else fails, you can actually come in here and you can choose your display that has your video game on it, and you can capture the whole screen this way. And I believe this is the most taxing option of the three, but just knowing that all three of those are available so that you can bounce through and choose different things if something isn't working, I feel like is really important. So back to kind of square one. Now you'll see that when I have the game open, it covers up our webcam. And let me tell you, I completely understand that everyone is just dying to see my webcam. So how do we fix that? Well, the source window stacks your sources in the order that you want to see them. So right now, because the game capture is above my webcam, you can see it and not the webcam. But if I take this, I just click it and drag it underneath the webcam, then all of a sudden it's underneath the webcam. And you can use that trick for as many sources as you put in this window. And now we're a streamer, guys. Look at that. We've got the webcam on top of the game. This looks acceptable. But how can we make it a little bit better? How about we take a border and we put it around our face cam so it kind of gives our face cam a home and gives it a little bit more professional of a look. We're going to do the same thing that we have been the whole time. You come down here, you hit the plus button, and this time we're going to go to image. We're going to type in, let's go Facebox. I like Facebox for this purpose. We'll hit OK. And now I get to try to remember where I saved my old face cam border. So give me 1 second. All right, I've navigated to where my face cam borders are saved, and I'm gonna pick one. We're just gonna double click it and it's gonna pop right in just like normal. We'll hit OK, and now we have a face cam border. We already know how to resize it, so let's go ahead and just do that. Let's grab our box. We're gonna bring this down to size. We're gonna adjust it a little bit, get this up here, and I think that actually looks pretty good. Maybe just a little bit smaller. We kind of bring that up like this. But there's an issue. I made my face box a little bit smaller than normal because I didn't really want the full webcam to be able to show through. It just takes up a little bit too much space in my opinion. So how do we fix that? We're going to come over here and we're going to right click on our source, which is our webcam, and go up to filters. Now filters are a way for you to put effects on your stream on any of the sources that you see fit. So whether you want to make your audio sound different or your video look different, this is the place that you do that. So we're going to come down here into effect filters. We're going to hit the plus button and we're going to come up and we're going to choose crop. And just like everything else, is going to ask you to name it, but I think crop is a pretty self-explanatory name. So we'll hit OK. And then let's talk about the way that OBS crop works. So unlike cropping systems in most video editors, OBS is a little bit strange in that for two of the parameters, when you start cropping the video, it actually also physically moves the video. And I'm not completely sure why this happens. Maybe somebody can tell me why in the comments and we can learn something together. But in any case, you have to kind of learn to work around it. So for starters, when we look at our video, it's hanging off on both the left and the right sides for how I want it cropped right now. So for starters, we're going to take the right side. And there's two different ways we can do this. You can type anything into this box that you want to. So if you need to make a really big move, you can start off and be like, I want to cut 200 pixels off the right side of this thing, and it will adjust in real time. Now, 200 is a bit much for me right now. I don't really need to crop that much out. So let's go ahead and just move that back to 0. And then we're going to look at these little arrow buttons over here on the right side. And we're just going to click this one up and watch as the source moves in on the right side. Because we're making a smaller edit, this is a little bit easier of a way to fine tune exactly where it goes. And it looks like about 42 is a good spot. So we're going to go ahead and leave that there. Now we're going to go to the left side and we're going to do the same exact thing. But you'll notice that when I start hitting up on the keypad, that not only are we cropping it away, but the whole video is now moving to the left with it. So it's going to take a little bit more fidgeting. We're going to set this to 48. I think that's probably going to be pretty good. We're going to take this and move it over, and nope, we can still see this on the left side. So let's go ahead and we're going to cut it down just a little bit more. Let's bring it up to about 80 or so and see if that does it. We'll take this and we'll move it back a little bit, and that looks pretty good. I think we're all set. Now there's a bunch of filters and things that you can do with OBS to make your videos look different. For instance, if you are a filmmaker and you know what LUTs are, you can add those in here as well. You have some simple color correction in here, as well as like a chroma key or a color key. These are what you're going to use if you have a green screen and you want to pull that out from behind you and just kind of sit over the top of your video. So now that we have this, let's say that we want to be able to add this on other scenes later. Or we want to be able to use this again, or maybe we just want to treat this as one thing. So if we want to resize it, we don't have to do it separately. So we're going to come over here to sources. We're going to hit the plus button and we're going to choose this very bottom option called group. And we're going to name this group face cam. And now you're going to see down here, we have a little folder source called face cam. If you hold the control button on your computer and click on the other sources, we're going to click on the webcam and our face box, and then we're going to drag those into the folder. And now those are grouped. Essentially, OBS is now treating those sources as if they were one source if you click on the group. So you can, up here, you'll see this little arrow. You can actually collapse them so you don't have to look at them if you don't want to. Just the same way as you could before, we have the eyeball. You can turn those on and off together. If you want to resize them, you can grab this red box right here, and you can actually size them up and down together until you get it to the right size. And it cleans up your sources window a little bit so that you don't have to look at everything that you don't want to adjust all the time if you don't want to. So I'm going to leave this like this because I think this works really well for me. And now, of course, what good is the stream if they can't hear you? So let's go ahead and talk about audio sources for a minute. So just over here to the right of the sources panel, you have an audio mixer panel. And this is going to list every single source that you have in this particular scene that makes any kind of sound for any reason. So you'll actually see right now that my camera is picking up all of me talking, and we don't want that. I'm actually going to come over here to where the camera is in the mixer, and you see this little speaker icon? If we click that, it's going to mute that source. So you'll see the meter stop bouncing right away. Also, real quick, as a customization option, they added in at some point, you can right click in this audio mixer and you'll see this option that says vertical layout. If you click that, it's actually going to change this to be a more traditional audio mixer view, which for me, having a career in audio, makes my head a lot happier to look at. But it works the same way. You don't get anything out of either one that you don't get out of the other. This just makes a little bit more sense if you're used to traditional audio applications like I am. So now once you get a bunch of audio sources in here, it may start to get cluttered up a little bit, and kind of like the group option, if you're going to have something that you're not going to adjust or use, like this webcam audio, maybe you just want to get rid of it, right? So we can actually come over here and you can click on the little cog underneath it, and you can click hide, and it actually just takes that track away from the audio mixer altogether. And don't fret, you can get it back anytime. If you just hit right click, unhide all, it comes right back. But if you don't need to adjust this ever, why keep it in your view? It's just cluttering up what you're looking at. So we're going to go ahead and hide that for right now so we don't have to see it. So now your stream needs to be able to hear you. So let's add a microphone. Now there's a couple different ways that you can do this. The most common way that I think I've seen it is not what I think is the best way to do it, but I'm going to start there. So if we come over here to the settings window on the right side, click settings, and we're going to come down to the audio tab. And in here, you have 4 options for mic/auxiliary audio. And if you want to, you can come in here and you can click on this and you can choose whatever microphone it is that you're using, whether that's like an Elgato Wave or a Razer Siren. If you're using your headset microphone, that'll be in here as well. I personally have a little stream mixer, so I'm going to come down and click on that, which is the AG03 by Yamaha. So we're going to go ahead and select that, and we'll hit OK. And then now you'll see in this scene pops up a place for my microphone. And as I'm talking, you're seeing it bounce up and down. which is great. But let's say you have like a be right back screen that you want to go to, right? When you flip to the be right back screen, you're still going to hear this microphone on unless you come down like we talked about before and mute it. And that's just kind of an extra step to me that I don't really want to do. And I did for a long time, and just I would forget then to turn it back on when I came back. And I would you'd either hear me while I was on break or you wouldn't hear me when I was coming back. It was just, if you're anything like me, this doesn't work for you, right? So I'm actually going to come back into settings. We're going to turn that off because this isn't the way that I like to operate. The way I like to do it is in every scene that I'm going to have my voice present, I'm going to add it as a source to that scene. So the same way that we've been doing everything else, we're going to hit the plus button and come up all the way to the top to audio input capture. Again, we're going to name it something so that we know what it is. I'm going to call this SM7B because that's what I'm talking into right now. And we'll hit OK. And in the same way, you're going to get a device list, and we're going to come down here. I'm going to pick my AGO3 because that's the mixer that I'm using, and hit OK. And now you'll see once again that my microphone is now showing up in the audio mixer. Great. We did it, fam. We're here. So let's say you get your audio added and it just doesn't sound right. Like it's a little bit quiet, or maybe it's too quiet when you talk, but then if you shout or scream, it gets too loud. There are some things that you can do to actually fix that. So the same way we added the crop filter to the video, we're going to come over here to our mixer channel. We're going to right click and hit filters. And in here, we have a whole list of audio filters that we can add to make our stream sound better. Now, again, this is something that I could make an entire video on just on its own, but I'll try to quickly cover some of what you can do with audio in OBS at the most bare bones option. So some of the important plugins that you have in here are going to be like your compressor, your gain, your limiter, and your noise gate. A compressor is exactly what it sounds like. It's going to take the loudest parts of your audio and it's going to compress them down to be quieter so that you have a more level sounding stream. That way you can turn your audio up without having to worry about blowing out your microphone if you yell or if you laugh really loud. You don't want to have to think about how loud that you're talking on stream. You just want to be yourself, right? So this is a tool that kind of helps with that. A limiter is more or less the same thing, except for it's a lot more extreme. So whereas a compressor starts at what they call a 2-to-1 ratio, where essentially once you cross the threshold of the compressor, it will cut your volume in half. A limiter starts at like a 10-to-1 ratio and goes up from there. So it does the same job, but just a lot more extremely. Gain is just volume. If you add the gain plugin and just turn it up, it's just going to add more volume to the stream, which can be both a good and a bad thing. And then your noise gate is going to cut out any audio that's below a certain threshold. So let's say you have like an air conditioner or something else that's kind of loud in the room. You don't want to just hear the whole time that you're streaming when you're not talking. And so what the noise gate will do is it'll cut out any noise that is quieter than your voice, but note that you will still hear those things while you're talking. It's not a fix-all option, but it is a good band-aid in a pinch if you need it. The other thing to note too is that when it comes to the audio mixer, this is going to be a really good way for you to be able to visually see how loud the things on your stream are. So just right now, like I'm talking and I'm getting up to about -20 on the list. Now, audio is measured in decibels, which in software, the maximum volume that you can get to is 0, and then it counts down from there. Why that is, I learned once a long time ago, and it was clearly important enough to stick with me all this time so that I can tell you right now. To give you a better idea of how loud things are next to each other, audio volume is logarithmic. So if something is too loud, if you want to turn it down half as much as where it is right now, you would turn it down 6 decibels. And every time you lower the volume 6 decibels, you are cutting the volume in half. Likewise, if you want to turn something up to be twice as loud as what it is, you would turn it up 6 decibels. So if you have something set to -18, if you turn it up to -12, it will be twice as loud as it was before. So now this is really great for a gameplay scene. So I think we're good here. But now what if I need to stand up and walk away for a minute? So let's go ahead and just quickly talk about scenes and how those work in OBS. So over here to the left of the sources panel, you're going to see a scenes panel. And currently there's going to be one scene loaded in because that's the way that OBS starts. And that is our gameplay scene that we've just made. So I'm going to right click on this and we're going to rename this one gameplay. So that way we know what it is. Then we're going to come down here and hit the plus button in the scenes panel. And we're going to enter a new scene called Be Right Back. We'll hit OK. And now you'll see we're back to this boring black screen again and everything has gone away. So for keeping things easy, I'm just going to add a text source. And we're just going to type Be Right Back. I don't recommend this being what you actually do, but for the purposes of being able to see what we're doing here, this will be helpful for us. So now you'll notice that when we come to this Be Right Back screen, it says Be Right Back, and my audio has disappeared from the mixer. This is exactly what I was just talking about. And then when we come over here and we click on gameplay, it's going to transition back to the scene that we had before. You'll be able to hear my microphone, you see my face cam and the gameplay, and all the work that we just did is saved in that scene. Great. Wrap it up. We're all done, folks. And you can realistically create as many scenes as you want to inside of OBS and use them for whatever purposes that you want to. For me, I have a couple different gameplay scenes depending on what I'm doing at that exact moment. I have a Be Right Back screen. I have an ending screen for if I decide not to raid somebody that day. I have a just chatting screen that's largely just my camera with a couple of on-screen effects to keep things interesting. You can really customize your stream to the fullest extent just by using what I've already shown you today. So now that we've made a couple scenes, let's talk about how we move between them. So the most basic option is to come over here and you can actually click on the scenes and you can bounce between the two of them inside of OBS. And you'll notice that when you click between the two of them, like if we go to from gameplay to Be Right Back, that it's going to fade slowly to black. And the reason it's doing this is because right now in our transitions panel, we have it set to fade for 300 milliseconds. And that's right here what this looks like. And you have a couple options right here. If we switch this to be cut instead, you'll notice that the duration goes away. And now when we bounce back and forth, it just cuts immediately. This is fine, but it just doesn't look nice. It's kind of jarring to the audience when they see it. So I recommend, if nothing else, at least leaving the fade on so that when you switch between the two, you have less of a cut animation and it more of a fade. There are also other transitions that you can add. Like, for instance, there are stinger transitions, which you can use where essentially it's like an animated screen that'll pop up, cover the whole screen, and let the scene change behind it. I could do an entire video just on transitions alone, but know that this is where you go to add those if you want to play around with. So you're a Twitch streamer now, and you've gone to all your favorite streamers, and you've noticed that they have really cool alerts when people like follow or subscribe. When something cool happens in the stream, something pops up with some fanfare to let you know that it's happened so everybody can get hyped and excited at the same time. These are called alerts, and in order to use them, you typically need to sign up through something like Stream Elements or Streamlabs. They've actually built entire platforms based around giving you access to stream data and stream activity while you're going to be able to do things like either to display your events on screen or send off hype alerts when things happen. Again, I could do a whole video on this, but really quickly, I'm going to go through and just show you how to add one to stream if you already have them. So I'm going to come here. I use Stream Elements personally for my stream data, and that's for a multitude of reasons, which mostly include when I started using Stream Elements, they were the only ones who had a cloud bot. So we'll just hit connect with Twitch. It'll log us right in. And then we're going to come over here to my overlays, and I've got a bunch of random stuff in here that I've screwed around with from time to time. But most recently, I've got these alerts set up right here. And when you hit preview, it's going to take you to this white tab where nothing's happening at all. That's okay. Nothing needs to be happening here because this is your alert box. We're just going to take the browser URL up here at the top. We're going to copy that. We'll come back into OBS. We're going to add a browser source. We're going to name this one alerts and hit OK. So we'll get the properties box, and this one's going to be a little bit different. You're going to paste your URL right here. You're going to come down. We're going to change the width to 1920 and the height to 1080. And then this is actually really important for me specifically. We're going to hit this little checkbox that says control audio for OBS. And what that's going to do is it's going to add this particular browser source to your audio mixer so that you can see and control how loud your audio alerts are compared to everything else. And we're going to hit OK. And you'll see that really nothing has changed. Well, that's because it's a transparent source and you're not going to see anything until somebody actually sets off an alert. So let's just see what that looks like real quick. And there it is up in the top left corner. We just have a little, hey, here's a new follower. There are a ton of places out on the internet that sell custom alerts, custom transitions, custom overlays, stuff that you can use that looks really good. It doesn't take a whole lot of effort to get set up on your stream that you can go out and get for like 10 or 20 bucks. Like they typically aren't all that expensive. I've covered just about everything that I want to be able to cover in this video, but there are a couple more technical things that I'd like to throw out here just in case that you want to use them. So let's just say that you want to use the fade transition for most of your scenes, but for one specific scene, you really don't want it to fade. You want it to be a different stinger transition, or you want it to just cut really quick so you don't have to wait for it. OBS recently added a thing called transition override where you can set up custom transitions for each individual scene that you've got set up inside of the software. So for instance, right now, if we're in gameplay and we go to be right back, it just fade transitions back. And if we come back to gameplay, it fades right back as well. But let's say we want to fade to be right back, but when we come back to it, we want it to cut really fast. So we're going to right click on our gameplay scene, come to transition override, and we're going to choose cut in here instead of fade. And now when we come to be right back, it's going to fade over, but when we come back to gameplay, it'll cut really fast. Just something that's out there for you to be able to do. I found it useful a couple times, but I don't use it a ton. One of the other things that my buddy Mel showed me recently, which follow him on Twitch. He and his partners stream a couple times a week and they're fantastic. The link will be in the description for that as well. But you can actually use entire scenes as sources inside of OBS as well. So if we made another scene, let's just call this one gameplay alt. If you want to use your gameplay scene again, and you either don't want it to clutter up your sources panel, or if you just want to make a slight change and add something else to this one, when you come down to your sources panel and hit add, you can actually choose an entire scene right here and bring this in as a source, which has helped me out a ton. I use this all the time. So if you choose your gameplay existing scene and hit OK, now you have another scene where your whole gameplay setup just came right into this, and now you can add whatever you want to. Like maybe you just want to have a couple different versions of your gameplay scene with different alerts. There are options here where you can actually build entire scenes. For instance, in my setup, I built my entire face cam scene using like 9 different layers. And then I just used that scene in other scenes in place of having to bring 9 source layers back into each individual scene that I'm using. It's a small thing, but it can be really helpful. And I didn't know it was there for an embarrassingly long time. It was right there. I skipped it every time that I was in the sources menu. It's my own fault. Thanks, Mel. I really appreciate you. And last but not least, let's just talk about some quick settings. Again, I could make an entire video about just the settings in OBS, what all of them do, but largely you're not really going to use a lot of them in your day-to-day streaming life. So let's just go over a couple of the ones that are really important. We come down here and we hit settings. What we're going to see right away is the general screen. The only thing I almost ever touch in here is when I first install OBS, I come in here and change to the dark theme, which is now also apparently the default theme. If you come to your stream settings, you can either drop a stream key in here, or you can even just connect directly to your Twitch account, which they recommend, and so do I. I actually don't know why my stream key is in here. That's interesting. I may have to fix that later. If we come to the output, you can see just some simple settings for your Twitch stream. Right now, the maximum output that you can use bitrate wise to Twitch is 6000 kbps. I wish someone had told me that, because when I started streaming the first time, it was only 3500, and I spent a good chunk of 2020 streaming at 3500 because I thought that was still the maximum that you could do. But this is one of those things where, like, if you start streaming and you notice that your internet is having a hard time keeping up and your stream is getting framey to everybody that's watching, you can adjust this number down so that your internet can handle the data a little bit better, and your viewers might get a slightly lower resolution stream, but lower resolution and stable is better than high resolution and they can't even tell what you're doing any day of the week. There are a few things that will make people click off of your stream faster than if it doesn't look stable. Then if you're going to use OBS for recording, you can set where you want your videos to be saved. You can set what quality and what format they save in. Personally, I use MKV because there's at least a chance that if you get like a power outage or if OBS crashes while you're using it, that the video file will still be savable, versus something like an MP4. If it doesn't get to finalize itself when you hit the stop recording button, you're just going to lose that video forever. The downside of MKV is you do have to convert it using something like Handbrake in order to be able to use it in a video editing software like Premiere or Final Cut. But that's a step that I'm willing to go through for the safety of not losing files. In here, you can also choose an encoder for your stream. You either have hardware encoder or software. The hardware encoder is going to lean on your video card as much as it can to take some of the processing power off of your computer. If you have extra space in your video card, or if you aren't playing a very video taxing game, your stream is likely going to look a lot better and run a lot smoother if you have the hardware option available to you. But if you don't, and you have a little bit beefier of a computer, if you really just need whatever video bandwidth you have on your video card to play the game that you're playing, you have the software option as well, and that relies a little bit more on your CPU or your processor to actually encode your streams. And last but not least, you say to me, but Kenway, my partner wants to also stream and we only have the one computer. How do we do this in a way that isn't just a nightmare? How do we both log into our Twitch account without having to type in our stream key every time? There's a solution for that as well. You have two options up here. Up in the top menu of OBS, you have two things called profiles and scene collections. Profiles are going to save your settings. So anything that you set up for like your stream key or the accounts that you connect to, your encoder and recording options, all of that will get saved with a profile. So if you're going to stream to multiple accounts, say your best friend wants to come over and he wants to be a Twitch streamer as well, and you guys are going to share your computer, you can set up a different profile where he can log into his Twitch and you can log into your Twitch on a separate one. Then you can just bounce back and forth between those two up in here. The same goes for scene collections. Right now, we're building what's called a scene collection, but if I come in here and I want to use my scenes again for OBS, I can hit this Kenway Twitch option, and then it actually drops us right into one of my scenes that I actually use to stream with. And I think that just about does it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please, I stream at least 1 or 2 times a week over at twitch.tv/everydaykenway. Give me a follow, come hang out. If you have any questions, I'm always happy to answer them for you. I've largely worked at building a community of people who just care about each other and want to hang out and be friends. So if that sounds fun to you, links for my Discord community and my Twitch and everything are always in the description down below. Did I miss something? Do you have more questions? Are there other videos that you want me to do? Let me know. Leave a comment down below. Of course, I'm on YouTube, so I have to tell you to hit that subscribe button and smash that like button, or people still say that. I know that they say it because it works, but like, I don't even think it does anything for you anymore. But either way, I don't know, hit the button. If it helps me, I appreciate it forever. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video. I thought you were going to connect.
We'll let you pick which one
I thought you were going to connect her path to ours, and it was going to look nice.
Here, hold on.
Like,
I'm going to give you your choice of.
Oh, Caleb, come here. Caleb.
Because here's the thing, is that your husband doesn't describe you, okay? So you can pick.
Caleb!